Chicago Bears 26. Lions moved to 8-2 for the first time since just after World War II. I don't know, what was it, in the early 60s, whatever it was.
Schefter has a good tweet. For the first time since 1969, the Lions and Browns have each won 7 of the first 10 games. The last time this happened, the Jets were the defending Super Bowl champions. Bill Belichick was a senior at Annapolis High School in Maryland, and Apollo 11 landed on the moon.
Wow. I was only half joking, but also half serious when last Monday you and I were sitting here. We're going to the Super Bowl. So we were looking for Super Bowl flights. And it was coming off of it was a victory Monday for both the Browns and the Lions. Yeah. And based off our interactions with both fan bases the last couple of years, they are an excited fan base when their team is winning. They love it. And I think it is Browns and Lions fans jacking up the flights to Vegas for the Super Bowl.
Seems surprisingly difficult to get to and from Vegas in those specific days.
Yeah, the prices are ridiculous. It's usually so easy to get to Vegas, and we can't find a good flight right now. And now we have to wait another week because the Browns and Lions won again. Like, we have to wait for them to lose, or maybe next Monday because the Lions play on Thanksgiving. Maybe things will be tempered by then. It's just ridiculous. It's all Lions and Browns fans, booking Super Bowl trips. Right. That's my theory.
It's bad enough that I genuinely did price out what it would cost to rent a truck and drive back from Vegas. All 22 and a half hours of it.
It's not good.
No.
All 22?
All 22 and a half hours,
yeah. So the Lions win 31-26. Justin Fields makes his return. Man, the Bears look so good early, but the Lions come back with 2 scores in the last 3+ minutes for the win. Let's start at the beginning here. Justin Fields making his return. It felt like they were saving the good stuff, right, for Fields to come back. He's running the ball. He ends up with 18 carries for 104 yards, but they were using him in the design run game. He's making some really nice throws, absolute dime to DJ Moore for a touchdown. And part of the reason why the Bears got up is the Lions kept turning the ball over.
Yeah, so they were one of those teams I mentioned earlier where they seemed intent on giving away this game. Goff had a ton of interceptions. They weren't all his fault. In fact, most of them weren't necessarily. Like, there was a tipped pass in there. He was unlucky more than terrible.
There was one really bad interception, threw it back to TJ Edwards. There was 2 unlucky interceptions where the route got the slant the receiver just got bumped into the defender, different defender. He has to throw it on time. There was a tip pass in there, but there were also 2 other passes that probably should have been picked. So this is one of those that
like a dropped pick 6 by Jalen Johnson right at the goal line.
This one evened out in the wash that Jared Goff had 3 picks because, he had 3 turnover-worthy plays. They were all pretty bad.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he had a bad game. In addition to them getting unlucky, his luck was, as you say, kind of a wash. Like, it ended up sort of where it should have been. There were another team that fumbled a kickoff. Like, just a bizarre game where clearly the Lions are a better team than the Bears, and yet again, you're going to test like just how many times can we screw it up and still win a game. And they almost lost it. Like, Fields had that dime to DJ Moore for a touchdown. He also had a throw late, which was a massive like high leverage play where who was it? The Tyler Scott, the rookie, just outside of his reach. Yeah. And if you watch that route, for some reason Scott eases up somewhere, trying to track the ball, trying to find it. I don't know if he misread it or if he just did those things where as soon as you start looking upwards, you just stop running automatically.
It looked like he was looking very early.
And that kind of was the difference of that throw. Like, it ends up being just out of his reach, but I don't think it was thrown just out of his reach. I think it was catchable, and the receiver eased up and kind of took it out of his own reach. Anyway, like, if that is connected, that's potentially a game-changing play in this game. Like, they go deep when it was a short conversion, and that was the play.
Even after all that, though, the Bears, in my notes here, a big boy drive, man. I mean, they're up 23-14, and in the fourth quarter, right? I mean, there was a lot of good stuff that happened that the Bears did as well. 14-play, 70-yard drive that took 8 minutes and 45 seconds. And so, again, I always talk about, hey, when you're the underdog, you have to, keep that lead as long as you can before at some point, the longer the game goes, the favorite has that chance to just, flip the script on you. And this was like, okay, the Bears, they they ended it, right? 14 plays, 70 yards. And they kick a field goal to go up 12. Now, it's only up 12 with 4:20 left. But you think, all right, we just took 8 minutes and 45 seconds off the clock. I'm okay with that. But the Lions come right back. I mean, all the drives that the Lions put together, the best that Goff and the Lions looked was right before the half. They had a really nice drive, scored with 16 seconds left, moved the ball very quickly. And then in the last 3 minutes of the game, 4 minutes of the game, basically, Goff hits Jamison Williams for a 32-yarder to get within 5. And then they come back and score with 31 seconds left. David Montgomery. The final drive was fascinating, too, because it wasn't just, dink and dunk and chuck it around. I mean, they were running. David Montgomery had 2 10-plus yard runs on that drive. They were playing bully ball on this game-winning drive in their 2-minute drill as well. So the Lions just cracked down late, and then the Bears still had a desperation. They still had a chance, right? They were still down 3, had a chance, and Aiden Hutchinson beats Darnell Wright for the strip sack, turns into a safety, and Lions escape 31-26.
Yeah, they did. I mean, that's the best way of, I think, summing it up. They dug themselves an absolutely massive hole, gave Chicago a chance, and then got away with it, escaped. Like, they became one of those teams that, how many turnovers can we have and still win a game?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think is impressive about the Lions. So you're sitting here as a team that is, hasn't been 8-2 since the 60s, and they're winning ugly. So instead of losing ugly, now you're winning ugly if you're Detroit. And you could look at Jared Goff and say, well, that's by far his worst game of the season. He was our number 1 graded quarterback coming in. There was always this part of me that said, well, he's not a 90 quarterback. He's good. He's not a 90 quarterback. That can regress quickly at some point. It did. At the same time, he's still making the plays that were needed end of the first half, end of the game, right? And you're just the better team. Yeah. And you found these other ways to win. I got some other Jahmyr Gibbs stats I want to bring up too, but this is the team that the Lions built. They have a lot of good players. So even on their worst day where they're turning it over, they have enough firepower on offense to make the comeback. They have enough players on defense to shut it down, like Hutchinson on the strip sack. It's a good team in Detroit, and it's almost more encouraging. Hey, we didn't blow out, Chicago, didn't cover the spread or whatever, but man, you come away with a win on one of your worst days. That's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, credit them. Like, contrast what happened to the Lions last night or yesterday with what happened to the Vikings last night. In that division could have turned into a really interesting horse race. And the Lions had a bad game against Detroit, or the Lions had a bad game against Chicago. Ton of turnovers. Goff played his worst game of the season. It would have been quite easy to have lost that game, to have lost belief, to have just gone, it's a bad day at the office. It's okay. It's only one game. Chicago, talked themselves into Chicago being better than they are. But they found a way to win it. Meanwhile, Minnesota, who was on the hottest streak in the NFL in terms of consecutive wins, who would put themselves in a position where they get a win and then have these games with Detroit at the end of the season, like they could actually have won that division. If Detroit loses one, if the Vikings win another one, or even if they just keep pace, and in the end the Vikings have enough mistakes and they find a way to lose a game that they could and should have won. So, I don't know if you say this is just the way the ball bounces in the NFL in small sample sizes, or if you say this is an indication of one team that's actually, forged some kind of belief over the last year and a half or whatever, and another team that isn't there yet, or maybe will never get there because, they're aware of their shortcomings. But just the contrast of those two teams, I think, was interesting. The Lions found a way to win even when they could have easily dropped one.
I want to highlight some of the Lions rookies again. Jahmyr Gibbs, I told you earlier, I was looking up stats since week 7. Remember, people were clamoring for Jahmyr Gibbs to get more touches. He did. He has really since week 7 when he came back from injury. Mm-hmm. Since that time, his ranks among running backs, he's 4th in rushing yards. He's 2nd in yards per carry, behind Jaylen Warren, of course, who's up around 8. But 5.6 yards per carry for Gibbs. 5 touchdowns, tied for 2nd. He's 3rd in receptions with 23. He's 4th in receiving yards, and he's tied for 1st in receiving first downs. Jahmyr Gibbs being a part of this offense in the way that he was, right? 2-minute drill type stuff, move the chains. This is, I think, what they envisioned. I know we talk a lot about draft time, about the first-round running back thing or whatever. It's just, those are that's one solitary decision that really doesn't make or break the team. It really doesn't. I mean, you could burn a first-round pick and still be a good team. But I think what the Lions envisioned here is we're just going to get a whole bunch of good football players. And like I said earlier in the year, like you don't justify Gibbs by just giving him 30 carries and saying go. You make him a part of the whole, right? David Montgomery still has his role here in this offense. Gibbs is carving out his role in this offense where he'll be the pass-catching back. We're going to get him the ball in space. Some weeks he'll have more carries than others, but he's becoming a really good weapon for the Lions here.
Yeah, I mean, the other element of that whole, draft drama about taking a running back high, et cetera, is by far the bigger mistake is going to be not getting good players versus getting good players, but at a non-optimal value position. Like, if you spent the entire time drafting and actually if you nailed 100% of your picks, you just took the wrong position every time, right? You would be the best drafting team in the NFL. You would be the best team in the NFL. It wouldn't matter that you are spending all your draft picks at non-optimal positions because you are drafting at like 3 times a better rate than anybody else in the NFL. So if the Lions, if the biggest criticism of that Lions draft is, well, they took a running back that high when they could have taken a pass rusher or a receiver or something else. Like, if that's the biggest criticism, but they actually nailed every one of the picks from an evaluation standpoint and they're all good players, they won. Like, they win that debate because the important part is getting the good players. So from that point of view, it doesn't matter that they took a running back at 8. Yes, it's suboptimal strategy, but if they hit the pick, it's still better than like missing on a different, spot or batting a, 300 or whatever, batting a 33rd percent.
One other person to highlight, speaking of rookies, Brian Branch. If you watch the game, he was everywhere. There were a couple bad plays in there, so I'll just get those out of the way. 2 defensive penalties by Brian Branch. He blew a gap in the run game and got destroyed by the center on a play. There were some bad plays in there by Brian Branch, but he made some unreal plays as well. Pass breakup at free safety, almost intercepted, but he was living in the backfield in the run game. The Bears kept using a ton of tight splits, so he was right there in and around the line of scrimmage. Wide receivers couldn't block him, and he was just a step faster. You always talk. There was a reason why Brian Branch was. I think both of us looked at him and were like, he's one of our favorite players in the draft because he just plays football really well. He just sees it, gets to where he needs to be, tackles extremely well, living in the backfield in this game. Outstanding in the run game, made that big play in coverage, like I said. So just wanted to shout out Brian Branch and what he's doing for the Lions. Even though it wasn't perfect, there were some bad plays in there that, you lose sight of when you're watching the game. So you might think he's going to have like a 90 grade or whatever, but man, he makes an impact for that defense.
Yeah, he's still got a strong defensive
It'll be a good
rookie of the year
Yeah.
candidate.
Yeah. So Lions move to 8-2, turn around quickly and take on the Packers here on Thanksgiving.